Coming in hot, 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 Lisa shares her financial tips and strategies to build wealth, have fun with finances, and be debt-free without having a restrictive budget. From bankrupt to millionaire, Lisa knows what it's like to feel as if you're living paycheck to paycheck. Her unconventional money multiplier system is the very wealth protocol that enabled her to retire 2.5 years early, pay down $100,000 of debt in 6 months, and move to her dream home at the beach. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to rate the show, give us some love. We would love your review. And remember, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's what you do with it. And some words of advice: pay yourself first. Are you ready to partner with money? Go check out the money dating game at idatemoney.com and choose your partner. We hope you always get the date you want.
Out into the world. So that is what I do now. I work primarily with business coaches, life coaches, people in the coaching industry. So I don't want to, put myself in a bucket, but business coaches, life coaches, fitness coaches, and other, business owners, a lot of people in like marketing, to help them write their books, and get them published. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And it's so important because I know we've talked a couple of times about this. I had, worked with an author back in August of 20 to outline my niche, to get clarity on my niche. And after he did the outline, he's like, oh, this is a book. I'm like, I'm not going to write no book. And so I did. I wrote a business book for my former niche and published it. It was basically my story about, 12 steps of healing post-abortion. Mm-hmm. And having that guidance is so important because there's so many different facets to writing a book that people don't understand, and like the continuity of the chapters and the way that they flow and what order they're supposed to be in, and of course the editing and all that. So Jenny, you help people with that, help coaches with that. So those listening out there, if you need help with this, you need to contact Jenny. You need to get on a call. So check the show notes, check the comments in the group, and connect with her and just find out, because she can help you get clarity on, like, maybe you want to write a book, but you're like, who do I direct it to? Who's my audience? What should I write about? And what should I say? And she can help you with all of that. So it's a really cool niche to be in, very and so much visibility. So thank you for sharing that. And go ahead and put your link in the comments, and I'll copy that and put it in the Facebook group, and then we'll have it for the show notes. So however you want clients to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
They can hit me up on Facebook. I will drop my Facebook link in there. They can also go directly to, I don't really have a website per se, but if you go to jennywatz.com, that will take you to my signature offer, which is called Book Your Biz. So you can learn a little bit more about that. And my last name is spelled W-A-T-Z. Just so a lot of people like to, spell it like the light bulb Watts. And that's not how you spell my name. So, I will drop those links in the chat. So one thing that I help people do is really, like you said, get clarity on what it is they want to write about. I have people come to me all the time with, ideas. They either come to me with super specific ideas or something written on a cocktail napkin. It's like pretty much everything in between. I help them with all of those, because the fact of the matter is we have so many things that we can write about, and people tend to overcomplicate it. And I know this because I'm one of those people. I like to overcomplicate things myself. So I help people kind of, figure out just what it is they're trying to do. I had someone recently I spoke with just on a 20-minute call, and they had actually written a book like 3 years ago, and they had a draft. It was still a draft. It was sitting in the corner of their office, just collecting dust. And they said they never published it because after they wrote it, they just didn't feel like something wasn't connecting. And in 20 minutes, we got more clear on who her book was actually for, and how to just make a couple of tweaks, like to the title, to attract the people she really wanted to speak to in her book. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, now I'm ready to publish my book." It's like all it took was 20 minutes and just a couple of questions to clarify and help her, see who her book was really meant to reach. Um, so yeah, I love helping people kind of, flip that switch. Like I said, I'm the catalyst, I'm the spark that, helps them figure all of that out. So,
Yeah, I love that. That is so amazing. So
yeah.
for those of you listening live in the group, please connect with Jenny and get clarity on that. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to do it alone. And it's such a great, time for you to get that clarity to be able to say, oh yeah, this is it. And I know it's an amazing way to get clients, right? So that's what our focus is on today is, as an author we get to use our expertise and showcase that. And like, when you say like, I remember when I published my books, it's like, wow, I published a book. And it's like such this great feeling. And how did you feel when you first published your book? Tell us a little bit about your book and um, the title of it. You can show us a copy of it and what inspired you to write that.
Yeah. So my book, it's right here. It is called Self-Editing Made Easy. Strengthen your writing and edit with confidence. I actually wrote this book because of questions that I would see all of the time. So that is one thing that I really encourage people who want to write a book to do. Just find a question that your audience asks all the time and answer it. And that's what I did with my book. So Self-Editing Made Easy helps people figure out things that they can do to improve their writing, to improve their manuscript before they send it to a professional editor. Because a lot of times people will think, oh, I'm just going to write this. And I've actually been on the receiving end of some manuscripts that should have never been sent to me. There are things that you can do with your writing to clean up your manuscript and make it the best possible version it can be before you either self-publish it, send it to a professional editor, or even want to submit it for traditional publishing. Because if some of the manuscripts that I have received went to a traditional publisher, they would go immediately in the trash. So
that
this
bad.
book,
People don't edit their books before they give it to the editor. Like, why would they do that?
right. So this book really is kind of it's a precursor to a professional manuscript edit, and really it helps authors just kind of clean up what they've already written, kind of polish it a little bit more, and again, make it the best version that they can make it before they send it off for professional editing or publishing. So that is why I wrote the book, because we're like, oh, I need an editor, or I need to, fix this. I'm not great at grammar, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, there are just a few simple things that you can do. You don't have to be great at grammar. There are tools that you can use that help you with these things. And like one thing, this is the simplest thing. And you don't have to even read my book to do this. Just read what you've written out loud.
Yeah.
That's one of the best ways to catch errors, to find misspelled words, to figure out how your content is flowing. Because if you read it out loud and you stumble over the words, that's an indication that maybe you need to revise that section there. It's just little things like that that can really help people, improve their writing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for those tips. How many of you, share in the comments, do you read what you write out loud? I know I'm 50-50. I got into the habit of doing it. But sometimes I'm like, do I have to say it out loud? Can I just read it to myself? But when you hear your own voice, it's different, right? The sound of your own voice is different. So that's a great tip. So
Yeah,
as an author, go ahead.
when you read it to yourself, but you don't read it out loud, it's like our mind plays tricks on us, because we intuitively know what it's supposed to say because we wrote it, right? So if we write something and we know the word "the" is supposed to be there, but it's missing, our brain is going to insert it anyway. because it knows it's supposed to be there. So when you read it out loud, you can catch that. But if you're just reading it to yourself, you might not. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that totally makes sense. Thank you for that tidbit. Guys, take notes. Grab your pen and paper and take notes because this is something we're writing copy all day long, right? You're making posts on Facebook and that writing is important. You're speaking to your clients. You want to speak their language. So read what you write out loud. I love that. So Jenny, as an expert and an author in your industry, what advice do you have for aspiring writers looking to share their knowledge and insights in this field?
I would tell people to just do it. You know, a lot of people are afraid to put their voice out there. Like they want to write a book. They think maybe they don't have enough stuff to actually fill an entire book. Um, and I always challenge people when they tell me that because you hear all the time the saying, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times I think you don't know what you do know. And what I mean by that is that there is so much knowledge that we have individually in our fields that we just take for granted because we do it all of the time. It's like second nature to us. But it's not second nature to a lot of other people and potentially to the people who we want to read our books, right? To the people who who are our target audience. They don't know the things that we instinctively know and do because they don't do it all of the time. So we know more than we think we know. And my job as a book coach and business book catalyst is to help you draw that out in a way that you can tell a story to your readers. And that's the other thing is with a book, you really want to take your readers on a journey. So I actually like to think of it as a roadmap, like you're taking a trip. So you to go from point A to point B, right? B being your final destination, not the movie. That's a whole different final destination. But your final destination is where you want your readers to be when they finish your book, what you want them to do. Do you want them to schedule a call with you? Do you want them to go to your website? Do you want them to purchase your product? What is it you want them to do? That is the destination. But along the way, you need a little you need some landmarks that I like to call them. And those are like, the stopping points in your book along the way. You think you're taking a road trip. So you need to customize that journey for your readers and help them along the way, so that it flows well. They don't get lost. They don't end up taking U-turns. And so that's how I like to envision it with my authors, and I help them kind of map out the journey for their readers.
I love that. And having that map, the roadmap is so important because I know a lot of times people will, I'm so unorganized. I need help organizing it. But they haven't even written anything out, right?
Right.
And even if they have like daily prompts to do it, they still get confused and having that direction is so important. So I love that.
Yeah.
So can you share specific examples of how revenue streams such as speaking engagements, consulting opportunities, or product sales have increased as a result of authoring a book?
One of my recent clients is an organizational management consultant. And, I'm not even like for sure what that is, but anyway, that's what he does. He knows what he does. And he had actually written a draft manuscript and he sent it to me because, I help people from the beginning stages, like, I don't know what to write to finished book, but I also help people who've already kind of written a draft, but they don't know what to do with it, or they know that like I have a bunch of words on this page and now I don't know how to assemble them. And that's where he was at. So he had all of these thoughts in his head. He put them down on paper and he's like, okay, here. And what he presented to me was 57 chapters. And no one's going to read that. Even if it were a required textbook in college, no one's going to read that. So we sat down together and really, he did not have 57 different ideas in this book, right? He just didn't know how to organize it. As an organizational management consultant, he knew how to do that in business, but he did not know how to do that in his book. So we worked together through the process, through the journey. And after his book was published, he actually landed 3 speaking gigs. So people read his book and booked him to speak in front of warm audiences, people who wanted to hear his message. And he also got a new 5-figure consulting client from his book. Like, he did not reach out to them, they reached out to him based on his book. So a book is more than just, oh, I'm going to sell it on Amazon and, get royalties. Because if that's why you're writing a book, that is a whole different scenario. And that's not how you really make your money from writing a business book. It's what happens on the back end, not the sale of the book itself, but it's the destination.
Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah.
I know when I've, for those of you who know me, I've switched my niche like 3 times. So my first niche, I was helping women post-abortion, and my book, Forgiving the Girl Inside, Finding Balance, Freedom, and Fun in Your Life, was published in February of 21. And, I actually had, Jenny and I didn't know each other back then. So I actually hired a coach, and he helped me write the book, get the chapters in order and did all that stuff. But I hired my own editor, and then I self-published through Ingram Spark. And I tell you, like, when you promote that book, when you market that book sold like 80 copies in 2 weeks, which was really good. I mean, I didn't really, I'm not a really good marketer per se, but what was nice was a lot of my family and friends were purchasing the book in my hometown, and they were sharing it with everybody. And so people were reading my book that I had no idea. And I was getting DMs, and people were asking like, "Hey, how do I work with you in this aspect?" Or, "Hey, I got a friend that needs your services. Can I give them your information? Can they call you? Can they talk to you?" And there was other people who would tell me, "Oh, I shared your book with somebody that I know is post-abortion, but they were so afraid to read it because they don't want to like stir up these things. Is it okay if they reach out to you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, they can reach out to you." But I ended up starting a not-for-profit called Divine Timing Ministries. And then we have our own Facebook group called After Abortion Healing Circle. And we have a
Mhm.
class called Forgiving the Girl Inside, a healing journey. So that book itself, even though like I no longer do that niche, I mean, here it is, what, 4 years later? I mean, well, it was published in February of 21. So
Mhm.
3 years later, it's still making an impact. And that's with me doing nothing other than the not-for-profit. And
Mhm.
it's so amazing because, we want to create this ripple effect of helping others, in this way where people can heal from it. So when you think about the impact it can make, it's a tangible product item, and I know that a lot of people, like, I know when I first published my book, I had a funnel working where I gave like the first chapter for free, and then
Mhm.
you could buy the book. You can get electronic version or like the Kindle version or the hard copy, and then you could read the book, and then it would invite you to book a call, and then from there you can get into I had a 3-month program at the time, 12-week program at the time, and it's just a beautiful way for someone to get to know you in at their own pace. So I love that. And I aspire to do a TEDx talk on post-abortion someday.
Oh,
Maybe not this year, but maybe next year.
mhm.
Because it's still, like I said, with the not-for-profit, it's still dear to my heart. I don't choose to coach in that realm anymore, though, because I just love talking about money and finances more as a wealth activator. So
Oh, yeah, talking about money is fun. Absolutely.
I
But
love
yeah,
it.
but you bring up a great point. A book is actually, it's an evergreen item. It's
Mhm.
it's always there. It's always available. So, that's something else that, you can capitalize on it, further down the road. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it was funny because like I know some authors will they'll write the book and then create a podcast. I actually I did the podcast for Giving the Girl Inside a Matter of the Heart. And then I wrote the book
Mhm.
because I was like I had a book. I mean, I'm an avid reader. I love reading, But me aspiring to be an author, it never crossed my mind until that seed was planted. Like when I met with this author coach, and
Hmm.
he was helping me clarify my niche. I was in an affiliate marketing program, and we were learning how to bring in multiple income streams from all kinds of sources. And one of the sources was to write a book.
Hmm.
But it's like you, he gave coaches like myself so much clarity on their niche and like who they're going to serve and how. And he asked specific questions.
Hmm.
And then, he outlined it for me, and he did this for several other, people in the group. And it was just like, wow. Oh, I have lifetime content. Like I never have to worry about what to write about. And after he outlined it, it's like, well, this is a book. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not an author. Like I'm thinking my favorite author is Sydney Sheldon. Like, there's no way am I ever going to be able to write like that. And you're like, but a business book is completely different genre from, the murder mystery, the
Oh, yeah.
the fiction books and all of that. I mean, that's a whole nother ball game, right?
Yeah.
So when you really want to focus on writing that business book and giving people those steps, one of the biggest fears that I hear when I'm working with people, especially when I do their profit gold audits, is I don't want to give it all away in the book, because they can just follow the book and then they're not going to hire me. How would you respond to that?
I would respond to that by saying, they're not going to do it. I mean, plain and simple, okay? It's like, you can, buy the book, send them to school, but ultimately, a lot of people just they want to be told what to do. And yes, we can read the books and they might read your book, but are they going to implement every step in your book? The chances are that they're not going to. They might implement some of them, but they're ultimately not going to get the results that they can get by working directly with you. So I wouldn't worry about giving everything away. No, I'm not saying to give everything away, but
Right.
but I wouldn't worry about that. There are ways that you can write your book where you reserve a couple of things, you hold some things back. You don't want to give everything away, um, but you want to give enough value away to where if they don't want to reach out and work directly with you, they still get some transformation from it, right? You don't want to write a book and say, well, the only way this is ever going to work is if you hire me, because well, that's just sucky. Um, so so don't do that. Um, so yeah, I mean, definitely write a book that has value that people can read and implement some steps and get some results. Um, but write it in a way that there's some additional information that they can get more benefit from if they worked with you directly. So,
Mhm.
I don't know. So just that answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about it, like getting that support, having somebody to support you while you're walking through, because there might be key points that you might miss, right? So like I know when I was writing my book, I was in a small group with seven other ladies,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was the coach, and each week we would build on, what we were doing. And there's so many details, like just with even like the book cover and the title of the book and how is it going, and then like the barcode and the ISBN. And so all of those pieces need to be put together. It's not just you write a book and you're like, and I know like I have several friends who have written books and hired publishing companies. So they get all this marketing done and they spend upwards to $30,000 to write a book,
Yeah.
and then into market it. And then they give it away for free so that they can hit the #1 Amazon bestseller and get that little sticker, I call it. It's that
Right.
sticker on that book. And I'm like, yeah, but did anybody read your book? Like, are they going to take the steps?
Right.
And so when you think about it, like I know when I wanted people to read my book, I was really nervous because I was sharing my story,
Mm-hmm.
and my journey through, what happens post-abortion, because there's so many layers to that. But I really wanted to help other women post-abortion, and because it was such a taboo topic, I knew that was the best way to reach them. And now I'm into finances, which a lot of people think are taboo. No one wants to talk about finances
That's
and like
true.
opening up, yeah, and to open up. And when you can like buried in our hearts is so much information about the story, about the results. So when you think about your niche, when you think about writing it, I know at the time that I was doing it, I was told to write the book in August, and in November I joined the program to do it. And I was scared. I was just like, what's
Mhm.
going to happen? People are going to read this story and what are they going to think about me? And I had so many words after the coaching sessions, like, well, during the coaching sessions, I had so many words, other different angles, like people's perspectives. Like I was getting like the boyfriend's perspective, my mother's perspective, this perspective. And my mom didn't know, but there was still this feeling of, did she know? Is she not saying anything?
Right.
No type of thing. But then afterwards, like what happened like in 2016 when I first told my family and like that aftermath. And so there were so many different ways you can do it. And it was almost like, and I know like when you're writing a business book, it's very specific and you have to be conscious of whose story am I telling?
Mhm.
So I omitted a lot of stuff, which could be another book, right? It could be like a sequel to that book. And that's where your expertise comes in and helping people write that business book. Because it's like, yeah, this is a great chapter or a great, this point of view is great perspective to put in here. However, it doesn't go with the flow of the book. So being able to have somebody point that out to you is so important. So how do you recommend aspiring authors identify and target their ideal audience to maximize the profitability of their book?
Well, hopefully, if they are in business, they already kind of know who their audience is, who they work with. So there's that. Um, but part of writing a business book again is like figuring out what you really want to say, and determining what your message is going to help you figure out who you're saying it to. And is that putting the cart before the horse? I don't know. You could go one way or the other, but I always like to help my authors, dial into their message, what it is they really want people to know. So if you're writing a book, if they take only one thing away from everything that they've read, what is the one thing that you want them to know? And if you can really home in on that, you're going to get much more clear on who needs to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I spoke earlier about the woman who had the draft book that just sat for 3 years collecting dust because she hadn't published it because something just wasn't sitting right. And I helped her. A lot of what she was struggling with was the title of her book, because she thought she knew who she wanted to market to, but something just really wasn't resonating. And so I asked her a couple of questions. And one of the questions I asked her was, if someone's walking through an airport and they walk past that little, bookshop, whatever it's called, Hudson News or whatever, and your book is sitting there, what is going to draw them in? What do you want that book to say to that person? If you can visualize that, then you know who you're talking to, and that was what she needed to get clear on her book title and who she's speaking to. So, it's a visualization exercise, really. But that's one of the things that can help authors is, figure out like if there's just one thing, if they're walking down the street, they're walking through the airport, you know, and they see your book, what is going to draw them? What is going to draw them to your book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the artwork and the title is so important. And I know like anytime somebody has to create a title, it's like, oh, is it good enough? And I actually interviewed James I. Bond,
Mhm.
who wrote Brain Glue. And his job, he's been in marketing forever, and his job is to help people to create catchy titles, and they do the double initials, is really like Peter Pan, right? It's
Mhm.
the double initials is really catchy and helpful, or something that rhymes or something. So it's really important. And a lot of times we can't do that for ourselves because we're too caught up. It's too personal, right? We don't have that bird's eye view. So creating that for ourselves.
Right. Okay, so
For
James I. Bond in marketing. That's an awesome name for a marketer.
Yeah, I know that's his real name though.
Awesome.
He was born before the apparently before the James Bond movies came out. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's what he says. So I don't know if he was named after the original. I don't know when the James Bond movies came out in the 60s. I thought they was out before then, but I don't know.
I
Um
would say early 60s. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and he
Yeah.
was definitely born before the 60s.
Okay.
So I thought that was kind of cool. His episode just came out the other day. So if you look in
Yeah,
the
I
group.
saw that. I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
really, a really fascinating person when it comes to being able to create titles and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so when you think about it, for authors considering self-publishing versus traditional publishing routes, what are the key financial considerations they should weigh in making this decision?
There are so many. Um, publishing a book, like self-publishing, it's not hard, but it's not simple. There are a lot of steps involved. And so you can self-publish and you can spend as little or as much money as you want. Um, you can design the cover yourself. You can, just find my book and edit it yourself and then not hire a professional editor, which is completely not what this book is about. But you can do that if you choose to. Um, and then you can put it up on Amazon or whatever and just self-publish it. Done. And a lot of people do that. Is that the highest and best way to go? Probably not. Even if you self-publish, you want to make sure that your book is professionally edited. You want to make sure that your cover design is professionally done. And because like graphic design itself, and I am not a designer, graphic design itself is a whole thing, right? Like there are like placements of words and like font sizes and colors and like just all these things that need to be considered. So yeah, you can just go in Canva and like slap something together, but is it going to be the greatest thing that's really going to like attract that person walking through the airport? Probably not. So again, you can spend as little or as much as you want. There are plenty of sites like Upwork and Fiverr that have people that do these things. Again, are those the highest and best people? Probably not. There are self-publishing like hybrid companies that help authors with that process. So you can spend, and it's probably going to cost you, several $1,000s to go with one of them. But they will help you with the editing, they will help you with the cover design, they will help you, with all of the logistics of getting your book put on Amazon. You mentioned the ISBN numbers, all of that kind of stuff. They will help you with that. And then you can go a traditional route. Now, for business books, with a traditional publisher, you actually don't want to write your book first. With business books, traditional publishers actually like to see a business proposal, a book proposal. So you would actually write your business book proposal and then submit it to agents and find an agent to represent you who then is going to shop your book proposal around to the trade publishers. So it's more of a long game. And there are benefits and there are pros and cons to everything, right? With trade publishing, you don't have as much control over your content. You don't have as much control over what your book cover looks like. You don't have as much control over, the sales, and a traditional publisher may or may not help you with the marketing. So, there are so many things to weigh. But that is also something that I help authors navigate. Because again, you can seriously go down a rabbit hole with publishing. I mean, you've done it, right?
Yeah.
So, like you all of the little pieces that have to be put in place. And it's a lot.
Mhm.
Is it impossible? No, absolutely not. But it's a lot. And a lot of people just, they just don't want to mess with it. So they're
Mhm.
like, fine, I'm going to hire somebody else to do all that for me. And other people are like, no, I want to learn the entire process and do it myself. And that's fine. So, I mean, to make a long story stop, you can spend as little or as much as you want publishing.
Yeah, I like that. That's fun. I've
I used to
never
work with a
heard
guy who
that
said that all the
before.
time.
I've never, because I always say, to make a long story short, because I tend to give too many details when I'm talking. I love that, to make a long story stop. That's
Right.
amazing. I'm gonna have to adopt that.
Well, like I said, I adopted it from someone. I didn't make it up either. So yeah,
That's fantastic. I love
yeah.
that. Yeah, and I have to say, going the self-publishing route was very challenging. I almost look back and think it may have been worth the investment just to have someone publish it for me because there was the formatting itself, and then I used Ingram Spark and
Mm,
uploading it, and I had pictures and quotes on every chapter. So
mm,
every chapter started with a quote, and every chapter ended with a picture. And you can't upload that all at once. You had to do the PDFs first, then add the pictures and the quotes. I'm like, well,
mm,
that's stupid. And then my book, the first, I don't know how many, at least the first 400 that were sold had no page numbers
mm,
because I didn't know that you had to include, I thought it was automatic. Why wouldn't it be automatic? You had to code something. So I actually hired a VA to go and fix it for me. And then one of the things I'm going to add, like when you do write a business book, and this is something that I'm sure you bring to people's attention, no one ever told me, is, and I've heard it since then, when you're using, when you want people, their call to action in your book to connect with you on your website, make sure it's a website you're not going to change. Like a lot of times people will get the domain that matches the book title.
right.
And you want to make sure that you have an email address or something associated with that. One of the reasons why I switched, like I have 3 or 4 domains, but it was like I switched my Calendly link to book a call. It was
Mhm.
completely different. It's just like, so you really want to make sure that's going to be evergreen as well. If you want people to like never change it. And I know the advice that I'd gotten from a different coach after I left that one coaching program was just use your name. You're never going to lose, you're, even if you change your niche and you change this and that, you're always going to have your name.
Right.
So
And if you do other things, even if you change like the name of your program or whatever, if you just use your name and people just like Google your name, then hopefully your SEO is working and they can find you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a tech word, so you know me and tech, we don't get along too well.
Yeah.
We're kind of
Yeah.
on that love-hate relationship. I
Yeah.
like to consider tech my frenemy.
But speaking of the cost, the financial considerations, think about my recent client who got 3 speaking gigs and a new 5-figure consulting gig. It's like, what are you spending and what is that worth?
Right.
So yeah, you might spend a few $1,000s to get it professionally published, and that includes the formatting and the book cover and the editing and all that stuff. Because formatting alone is enough to make you pull your hair out. Um, but if it ends up with you making, 5, 6 figures, like it's kind of a no-brainer investment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, definitely like looking at the overall cost. And is that something that you help with them when people book a call with you? You sit down and say, okay, this is your book, this is the projected cost, let's reverse engineer it. This is the potential of what you can, like, this is how you can get your ROI back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's a matter of knowing what you want your readers to do once they read your book. Like, where's the destination? Where are you taking them? What do you want them to do with that information? And what do you want the result to be? You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So helpful. So all the little details. So for those of you watching live, thank you for joining. I can't see comments, so please leave comments, ask questions. We'll get to them post show. And if you're watching this on the YouTube, thank you for being here. Connect with Jenny. You ready to write your business book? You ready to get out into that world, get some speaking gigs, and really up your ROI in your business to connect with the amount of people that you want to connect with? Jenny Watz is your business book catalyst. You can connect with her. The link is in the show notes to connect with her. JennyWatts.com, book underscore your underscore biz. And of course, you can find her on Facebook under Jenny Watts. So thank you again, Jenny, for being here. And for those of
you.
you listening, for those of you watching, listening, watching the replay, this is a great way to get your authority established in your niche, to get your heart out there into what it is you want to do. And it's a great way to bring in another stream of income in various ways, because we love multiple income streams. Because remember, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it.